guys, Dr. Minardi here to bring you all things STEM. From my journey to yours, we are on an adventure together. Today, we have the immense pleasure of hosting Chaya Mallavaram, and let's welcome her to the stage. Hey, Chaya, how are you?
Hi, Karina. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's going to be good. It's going to be fun, and I can't wait to talk about it.
I love fun. We all know that. So let me introduce you and let me introduce you to our listeners today. So, driven by a blend of formal education in accounting, a thriving career in technology for over 22 years, and a profound passion for art, which I'm so looking forward to talking about, Chaya has embraced every facet of life with a growth mindset. That's huge. So, living with ADHD has been her greatest teacher, guiding her through triumphs and trials and fostering personal growth at every turn. From navigating the complexities of distraction to discovering the power of hyperfocus, each experience has shaped her into who she is today. In harnessing those strengths in transformation, creativity, emotional intelligence, and unconventional thinking, she's learned to embrace challenges as opportunities for growth. That's so powerful. What's even more powerful is she's the founder of Spark Launch. She brings a deeply personal perspective to ADHD support and advocacy in that role. Her mission is to empower the neurodivergent community in homes, schools, and workplaces through coaching and training. Regardless of neurodivergence, every mind possesses remarkable potential and warrants acknowledgement and respect. And there is no greater way of introducing such a powerful leading lady in tech than that. So, welcome again, Chaya. I'm immensely excited just to have a pure conversation with you. And where we always like to start with our guests is tell us a little bit about your background and yourself.
Thank you so much, Karina. Uh, where do I start? So, I grew up in India and now I live in the US. I live in Massachusetts, rest here in the US. And so I grew up in India in a big town called Bangalore, and where I just went to school to some of the best schools in town. I didn't have any decision making as to which school I went to. So I'm extremely grateful for my parents, especially my father, who said I have to get the best education. So I went to some amazing schools. But in spite of that, I had a lot of challenges when it came to studying and performing in tests and exams. I didn't know what that was. But now looking back, a lot of things didn't support my brain type, and but I wanted to do well, so there was this constant battle between me wanting to excel, because I had a very ambitious father, and my mother was very, very smart. So I don't know where I had this ambition from, whether it was my own or my parents. I don't know, but I knew I had to do well in life. So there was this struggle between the ambition and actually doing the work and understanding the material. So this was a constant war inside of me when I sat in classrooms, because I was a constant daydreamer. My mind would just wander without my control, and I would constantly try to bring it back to the classroom, and it would escape, and then it was just a battle. And the exams, because I it was all about the exams and tests and the grades. So that was my challenge. So in spite of all that, I have a degree in accounting, and my father was a CPA. Back in India, it's called CA. It's the Chartered Accountancy, and so I chose that. Uh, at 15, not knowing what it was at all. And in India back then, and I'm not sure how it is right now, but once you've chosen the path, you're married for it for life. There's no going back. It is what it is. And that was the best informed decision I made at that point, looking at my father. And I liked math. So those were the two things that made me pick accounting, commerce. It was called commerce back then. It it involved all the areas of business, but they didn't call it business, but it was more focused on accounting. That was the big one, and taxation. And so I have a degree in that. And then I was going for the next level, which is the chartered accountancy, which is what my dad did, because I wanted to be something. I didn't know what that something was. And so, yeah, so I experienced a lot of challenges even in college. Although I did pretty good, it was not fun until I was accidentally introduced to technology by my cousin, who wanted to see me succeed. So I'm extremely grateful for my cousin, who came home and convinced my mother to enroll me to a computer class. And back then, all these computer teaching centers were popping up because it was the boom. It was the late 1990s. And so I went to the class. It was not my decision. I was not strategic or ambitious about learning technology. And I sat in the classroom and I literally experienced love looking at flowcharts. So it was so magical. And what was magical was that I understood it and I was interested in it, and my mind didn't wander off. I was focused and I was curious, and I loved the fact that it was all pictures and the flow, the logic, all of that made sense. Um, it was exactly how my brain worked, and so I experienced literally love in sitting in a flowchart class, and off I went off. Like off I went on that journey, teaching myself how to program, because back then programming was on paper. It was, I didn't have the opportunity to correct my code if I made a mistake, and that was very annoying. Of course, we had computers to work on, but a lot of all the exams were on paper. I had to write code on paper, and if I forgot to declare a variable, I couldn't squeeze it in, and there was no computer to tell me it was wrong, and I couldn't go back and fix the code. So it was very frustrating, especially for my ADHD mind, which is non-linear thinking. There's no order in writing code, and I that was the annoying part. But I loved the experience, and so I continued on that path, and pursued in finding projects to honor my interests, and then came here to the US by marrying my husband, who's strategic planner, and I met him in India. He was my neighbor, and he wanted to study, and he's definitely there's not an ounce of ADHD in him. So he, so he came here, and I just joined him, and I just could not sit alone and be bored, and I didn't want to pursue accounting, and so I put all my energy into finding a job in computer science. So that's my background.
That's amazing on so many levels. I think there are two things that are impactful that I've uncovered in all of my different conversations with individuals on this podcast and outside of this podcast. Um, those being that it's almost a random, almost always a random circumstance in which presents something similar to yours of, oh, here's an area of a career. Huh, I really like this. And it's creating that sort of awareness, but it's very random in nature in which how it happens. The other thing is that, or the other piece, I should say, is that there's almost always a person who impacts your journey, not along the way, or says, you need to go this path. Similar to your father, as an example. I can very much mirror that in that my father was a clinician, so I thought I was going to be a clinician. Nope, didn't shape out that way, but I'm still in healthcare. During the day, at least I should say. So it's really interesting in that fact. So I want to now move to your current state. And your career, that's your path and that's your past, right? But I'm really curious about, you've talked about numbers, which is the M in STEM. You've talked about tech. But what's an interesting context now is art. And STEAM is a new common thread. So talk to us a little bit about art.
Oh, art. I've been into art ever since I can remember. As a child, I used to draw cartoons, and I copied everything from Mickey Mouse to Donald Duck to all the Disney characters, and anything that I saw on a cover of a book, I wanted to copy it. So I've always recreated something that interested me. And as I grew, I started creating posters for my friends with phrases and quotes. I would give that away. And as I grew into being a teenager, I was interested in portraits. So I started drawing everybody in my sight, all the celebrities, because they look gorgeous. And so I wanted to recreate them on paper. And so that kept going on the side, on the other side of my life. And I wanted to become bigger and bigger. So I then went after producing art for the walls. From posters, I wanted to hang them in my house back in India. So I created several art pieces and hung them around my house. And my mother loved it. And she would always encourage me in my painting. Both my sister and I, we both drew, and she was a big force of encouragement, and so was my father, because he was extremely creative and also loved art. So I had a lot of encouragement, but I didn't go to a single class there. I should be grateful to a friend, to actually my sister's friend, who came home and taught me how to mix oil colors, oil paint. I had no idea there was a technique to it, and she did that. And my first painting actually was Lion King, the Lion King, Simba, and his girlfriend. That was my first painting, which I believe my sister still has it. It was a gift to her. And so that's what I did. And when I came here, my first instinct was to decorate my walls, and I painted, and that kept growing. And I've always been up for a challenge. So I've always challenged myself to get better and better and better at my skill, because I think now I know I get bored easily. I can't do the same thing. And so what happened was I then painted my son, uh, who is now 19, and I painted him when he was 5 years old, I believe. And then in 2009, I lost my mother for Parkinson's disease, and I wanted to raise funds to help bring discovery with the Michael J. Fox Foundation for the medicine. And there's so many challenges with Parkinson's. So I wanted to bring cure and raise money. And so when my mother passed away, I wanted, the only talent that I had to offer was art. And so I realized I could not sell my paintings because they were not originals. I used to copy. I used to, like, even my son is a copy. So I realized I couldn't do that. And so that pushed me into creating something on my own. So I took that as a challenge, even though I could not accomplish my goal of raising money by selling my paintings. I Since then, I my biggest goal was to create out of nothing, to create something that's original from me. And that was a huge challenge, because it was horrible when I painted. I hated it. I hated all my artwork. And that so my challenge was to impress myself, to be in love with my work. And so that's been my art journey, to the point now I know I can critique my work to the point that I am in love with my work before I put it out to the public.
That's awesome. I love that. And you said something so profound personally, is that there's create something out of nothing, right? And I can't help but think that that is a high similarity to coding, in that coding, you are creating something out of nothing. You are taking a data set, analyzing it via code or transforming it via code, and then creating. And so maybe it's not nothing, but you are still creating, and there's an art to that. So I was wondering if you could comment on that.
Absolutely. It goes back to one of the comments one of my colleagues made. He looked at my code and he said it looks like art. And that struck me because he could see that similarity. And I'm like, what? What does it mean? But he was like, Chaya, that your code looks like art. The way you've arranged it. And so, yeah, so somebody else could see it. And for me, it is very similar. I agree with you. And that's why I liked it, because with coding, there's this, and I'll tell you the difference also. With coding, especially, you know what, you have a vision of what the end result should look like. So you're going from nothing towards something, but you have a vision of what it should be. And so that gives freedom to create the way you want to, the code. I meant the code, uh, and what's meaningful for you, and then you write code to achieve the end result. And so that way it's very similar. It's a playground, right? It's a playground with some structure, like a canvas, with boundaries. You have boundaries, and within the boundaries you are given freedom, but there are rules, but they are very loosely defined rules. And it's very similar to art in that way. The only difference when I say, especially with abstract painting, is I have no idea how it's going to look like. So I'm not going after something. I have no idea of the end result, because sometimes it takes its own shape and form and create something which is as surprising to me as somebody else. So that is amazing, and that is very exciting because I have no idea how it's going to end up. I'm not strategic, at least the way I paint. And I think that's true with abstract painting.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think it's interesting because it's you may know where you're going, especially in coding, but how do you get there? I mean, it's kind of along the same lines around, forging a career in technology, right? I kind of think I know where I'm going, but we'll see what happens along the way. So let's circle back to your career in technology. And I want to learn a little bit more about like the industry that you wanted to apply your background in technology. Why did you pursue that industry? Talk to me a little bit about that.
So the first job that I actually got an offer from was a big accounting firm, one of the big fives. And I went to a job fair, and they wanted me to interview because I think they saw this background of accounting and my all my projects in technology. It was a good fit. So I just went there, and it was all Java, and I did really well, I think, because at the end of the day I got the offer. And so I was just going with the flow. I was not strategic. I just knew one thing, that I wanted to write code. I didn't know which technology, but I back then, this was in 2000, it was all C++ and Java, and that's what I went for, and I got the job. But I did not take it because it involved travel. But that was one of my high moments, because I was like, "What? They want me?" I'm like, "What is going on?" And so there's a lot of imposter syndrome going on within me for a while, actually, which I know now that is common with neurodivergent people, because they somehow magically got it, and now they feel it was almost it was just a fluke. And I've always felt that way. And that was because that's how the world is built. It's not that I was fake. I know I was good at it, but it was just, how can it be so good? How can it be so easy? And so yeah, so I then went there, and then I ended up actually getting another job which was local. And I, same as a Java programmer, I got in. But soon they were implementing PeopleSoft, and so they asked me if I wanted to be on the project. And again, it was new, it was unknown. I said yes. I called a few people that I knew and asked if it was fine, and they were like, "Yeah, oh yeah, it's good. It has a future." And so I jumped on the project. There were parts that I was extremely bored because we were just sitting around waiting for things to happen. Uh, that was painful. I've always found sitting around and waiting just painful. So I couldn't wait to get on projects. So it did land eventually, and I loved writing complex business processes. It had to write code for complex processes like mergers and um, acquisitions and things like that. It was amazing. And plus it was all new. There was a lot of unknown, not just for me but even for the team. So that was yeah, that was my journey into how I ended up working in ERP system my whole life.
What I
In
love is
technology.
that you started from a position that you didn't give completely up on accounting. I don't know how else to say it, right? But you actually merged what you had previously been a subject matter expert in with a love of what you actually want to do, which is technology and code writing. Um, and that is something that I'm really passionate about, in particular, that, I have a PhD in chemistry. I don't use that every day, but I do use sort of the seminal skills that have been built in me and I'm trained to do in approaching problems on a daily basis. And that's really fascinating for me. And so there is a way to merge, which I love that you demonstrated, merge a past experience that you are an expert in with a technology or an area that you want to pursue.
Yeah, because I believe that wherever we go, we are meant to go there. It's life is a journey. And if I was meant to experience accounting, there are so many lessons for me from that. The fact that uh, I merged technology and accounting was amazing, because even the first 7 years in my work, it was with the finance area of the business. And so that's there. And but I also learned, which was very, very important to what I'm doing, is that I rejected something that I found no passion for. I was brave enough to do that. And I see a lot of people not honoring that. And that's one of the reasons I think a lot of people with ADHD feel challenged is because they have not honored themselves, what they like, what they are interested in. The only thing, if I look back, the only thing that's worked for me is I've gone after what I wanted and what I believed in. It is challenging. It's very challenging because nobody is you don't have a red carpet welcome because you don't have the background. I see you nodding your head. Yeah, there's uh, because people see you in a box, right? Whatever box you put yourself in, and and it's up to you to put yourself in another box, in the box that you believe you belong to. Because people look at my art and they say you're an artist. What is Spark Launch? How did you even come up with it? Do you have a degree in psychology? These are the questions I do get asked once in a while. But I know I have the passion, because human behavior is another thing that I'm so interested in. While I was being a developer, I observed everybody. I observed every human behavior, and there were behaviors that I did not want to participate in. And so I rejected that, and I did not mind being an individual contributor, and I loved code, and it was me and the computer. Doesn't mean that I did not like interacting with people. I always loved that. But I in the organization, I didn't think of becoming a leader in that traditional sense. uh, and so yeah, it was so life is a journey. I actually don't know where I started. This is what happens with an ADHD person. I forget my base. But yeah, that's my journey. I'll let you ask the next question.
No, but I think you said something that was, again, extremely profound, and something that I'm very passionate as well, is that um, it's just as important to find something that you love to do,
Yeah.
just as finding something that you do not ever want to do again in your life, or you find no passion for. I think they're interchangeable, but that's my own opinion. Um, there is something to be said about exposing yourself to those things in which you're like, maybe I could do this, and then you get into it and you actually do it for a couple of weeks or months, and then you're going, absolutely not, this is not a good fit for me. And it not only takes strengths to I think react in that way and to understand, but to know yourself good enough and well enough to say, that's not for me.
Absolutely. And you have to honor that, because you know yourself the best. It's not your boss, it's not your parent, it's not your friend, it's you. So you have to honor that.
So you mentioned Spark Launch, and I do want to talk to you a little bit about that and give you the opportunity to share. I think we all know sort of the why behind it, right? But what is it? What's new on the horizon? What's next?
There's so many things that are happening. It's so exciting. As I mentioned, I put myself in that box, and I had to learn to find confidence in myself. That has been my biggest journey, because it was taken away in school. And so I had to be brave to speak my heart. And I know other neurodivergent people, ADHD, autism, dyscalculia, whatever that may be, have so much potential inside them. There's that spark inside every single human being, irrespective of what disability you may have. I do not like the word disability. That's what the world calls it. But it's a difference. It's a neurodivergent, it's a different kind of thinking. But every single person has something to offer in this to this world, and that's the spark. It's up to us to find that spark. And a lot of people haven't found that spark, because once you find that spark and then also learn skills to manage that spark and to show up in the world with that spark, you will make an amazing difference on that planet. And that's the launch part. That's the action, because action is key in everything. And I see people being challenged, uh, not because there's anything wrong with them, because that's the way the world is. For instance, we just talked about the non-linear way of how we find our place in this world. And but the traditional world says, okay, you have to do step one, step two, step three. You get your degree, you get your master's, you get your PhD, and then do the job that you have now studied, because you are supposed to be an expert in something that you are educated in. and and then a lot of people just follow that, and but they are much more than that. They are so much more, because we are not just that one thing. We are everything. We are everything that our heart desires. And so I see that people feel challenged, and I want to help them. I just want to help them thrive. And I truly believe in the neurodivergent mind, because they are rule breakers. They're non-traditional thinkers, and that's what we need in this age of AI. Because because I knew AI could not replicate my art, because I was living in every part of my neurodivergent mind, because I don't know what my next stroke is going to be, with my brush stroke is going to be. And how will an AI predict? It can predict my pattern, maybe, but I don't even know my own pattern, because my art is filled with emotion. It's filled with a lot of passion. And we know AI will never have emotions. It might try to mimic. So yeah, so it's really up to us. And there's so many aspects, like people pleasing, rejection sensitivity dysphoria, and things like that, that will stop people from shining their light. And everything comes back to believing yourself, and the self love, the interest that we've been talking about, irrespective of what other people tell us. And so I want to help them thrive, because I believe in them.
As do I. One of my favorite individuals that I'm currently working with is neurodivergent, and they are just a powerhouse. And they know who they are on this as I reference them. That's it's just amazing. I think the ability and you're exactly harnessing precisely what I think we're all about. And this is why I'm just so grateful for you to be on this podcast, because I think having that spark and recognizing it is powerful, but also knowing that it is going to take various people, various instances, various awareness opportunities to have that, right? It's not just going to be a one and done. And I think the other piece is that what I'm very passionate about as well is that, yes, your education may be a linear path, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's where you're going to end up at the end of the day. And AI is never going to have passion. That's something that is a trait of humanity. And that is, it's just something to be said, right? So I want to ask you one last question that I ask all of our guests. And that is, if you were to speak to Chaya 10 to 20 years ago, what would be your words of wisdom for her?
It would be, stop having expectations from others to understand you, and to believe in yourself, and don't seek that external approval, because I did that, because that's how the world is built. But it's okay, I had to experience that, because I could talk about it.
That is something. And that's what I also love about this podcast is that it gives the opportunity for others to learn from others, in that, like the external expectations, the external pressures that everyone feels. And I think it's just almost insurmountable now in today's culture. And it's really challenging. But there's also a part of self-discovery and self-acknowledgement to it. which I think you are, and your story is powerful in that because I think that demonstrated that.
Right. Self-awareness is key because that means we have to stop focusing on others outside and stop comparing and bring back the focus on yourself, and that's self-love.
That's precisely it. I love that. And I love that that's where we're going to end this episode because I think that is just so powerful. So, Chaya, with that, it has been a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to have you today and to learn about not only yourself, but also about your path and where did your journey stem from. So I thank you for that.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And I think we were meant to meet. And I am extremely grateful, Karina. Thank you for having me on this show.
At STEM From, we are working towards making all STEM careers achievable, regardless of your identity, background, or even access to resources. Here at STEM From, we will introduce you to all things STEM, whether they be careers, research, tips and tricks, and even inspiration. Thanks all for watching and learning with us today. And don't forget to ask yourselves, where does your journey stem from?